We are going to explain the types of cell tissues in plant. Plant tissues are divided into meristem tissues, permanent tissues. So meristem means that meristem is not permanent, meaning that they are actually a young cells, then will give rise to permanent tissues. The meristem divide continuously and then differentiated. The differentiated cell will become the permanent tissues. Jadi asalnya sebenarnya dia memang daripada benda yang sama, tetapi setelah menjadi develop, dia berkembang dan kemudian it has certain characteristics, dia akan specialize mengkhusus kepada fungsi-fungsi yang berbeza. Sebab tu walaupun kita tahu dia daripada sel yang sama, tetapi disebabkan fungsi dan ciri dia yang berbeza, kita kelaskan dia kepada meristem dan permanent. For permanent tissues, there are ground tissues, vascular tissues, and dermal tissues. So what are meristem tissues? Meristem tissues are tissues that is actively dividing. We can find them at parts where those plants are growing. These tissues has thin cell wall, thin. Then cytoplasm, maksudnya cytoplasma dia pekat, kita boleh nampak dia punya warna yang lebih pekat berbanding kalau kita dah tengok tisu yang permanent, tisu permanent tissue. They has small vacuoles, or sometimes they don't have a vacuoles because they are cells that actively dividing. Dia tak simpan banyak, okay, and has large nucleus. Sebab tu tak muat kalau nak letak vacuole yang besar. Cells are relatively small and closely arranged due to active mitotic activity. So they continuously dividing. Rapat-rapat antara satu sel dengan sel yang lain. Meristem tissues, because they have the ability to divide, so their functions is to generate additional cells. Then differentiate to form permanent tissues. There are three types of meristems, meaning that we can find these meristem tissues. At the apical meristem, maknanya dekat hujung atas, hujung bawah. Lateral meristems, kita pada bahagian lateral maksudnya involve the diameter of the plant, and the intercalary meristem, in between the internodes. Apical meristems includes the roots and shoots, and also the buds. Axillary buds ni tunas sisi. Okay, kalau pokok atas ni tunas atas, kemudian ada tumbuh tunas tepi. Ni axillary buds lah. The function of the apical meristem is to produce new cell for primary growth. Primary growth meaning the increase in length, meninggi, pokok meninggi. Ataupun kalau pokok yang menjala, dia akan memanjang. Divided into three parts, protoderm, procambium, and ground meristem. So this the cross section, transverse section of a root. Ini bahagian root cap, jidal akar. This is the part where the meristem tissues are actively dividing. Ataupun ni sebenarnya kalau ni the tempat yang dia, sel yang kita nak cari, sel yang meristem tu, yang kecil, padat dan nukleusnya besar. Okay. The apical meristem in shoots, this is where we can find the meristem tissues, not here. Lateral meristem produce new cells for secondary growth that increase in diameter. Includes vascular cambium. Vascular cambium maknanya tisu vaskular yang ada dalam tu dia pun akan membesar lah, itu maksud dia. And cork cambium, bahagian gabus tengah-tengah pokok tu. The function of intercalary meristem to produce new cells in monocots. Contoh ni biasanya melibatkan pokok-pokok yang ada ruas, yang kita boleh nampak ada senggat macam rumput tu ada, macam tebu, ataupun kalau tengok bayam Brazil ke, benda yang mudah-mudah lah, pokok pokok yang kita boleh potong, cut the parts of the plant, the mature parts, and then we put it in the water, something will grow out of the parts. Jadi dia boleh tumbuh pokok yang baru. Itu adalah intercalary meristem lah. The distribution between mature tissue sections. These are the mature parts. Mature parts. So we can find the intercalary meristem here, in between the internodes. Permanent tissues are ground tissues, vascular tissues and dermal tissues. Ground tissues ni asas, tisu asas. Vascular tissue adalah tisu vascular yang mengangkut tisu pengangkut, while dermal tissues are the tissues that form the skin. So ground tissues are divided into 3 types. The parenchyma, the word parent means this is the original cells that give rise to another cell, parenchyma. Collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Okay, let's see how they are differentiated. So the keyword for parenchyma, to explain or to describe parenchyma, they have thin and flexible primary cell walls. Don't leave out the word primary. Don't leave out the word primary. We must include the word primary cell wall if we want to describe the physical characteristics of parenchyma. So kenapa primary? Sebab dia masih muda. And then the deposition, the composition of the cell wall itself, composed of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So dia bukan keras, dia strong and flexible. Sebab tak ada hardening materials, tak ada faktor-faktor pengeras, which is the lignin. So there is no lignin in parenchyma cell walls. Made up of cellulose, ini memang basic, semua cell wall cellulose, and then ada additional hemicellulose and then pectin. So apa dia hemicellulose, you don't have to know at this point of your study. Parenchyma have large central vacuole. Jadi besar, boleh nampak, boleh nampak dia menolak nukleus ke tepi. Living cells, it is a living cell yang hidup because it has nucleus. So the metabolism is still carried out. Cells are loosely arranged because it has large intercellular space. This here is the intercellular space, not the cell. This is the intercellular space. So because they have intercellular space, we know that parenchyma, because it has a large intercellular space or many intercellular space in between the cells. So parenchyma is actually young cells that can be found in young plant or herbaceous plant, herbaceous plant, pokok-pokok renek, ataupun floating plant for that matter, because the airy space here provide floating mechanism, the ability to float. Parenchyma can be found in cortex of stems and roots, batang dan juga akar. Cortex ni bahagian ni lah yang memenuhi ruang batang pokok dan juga akar pokok. Ini empulo kan, pit. Jadi ni semua ni adalah cortex lah. Alright. So nak cari parenchyma, boleh cari paling banyak abundant dekat bahagian sini, dekat bahagian cortex. Also can be found in mesophyll of leaves, in the pit of dicotyledon stem kat tengah-tengah ni, and leaf stalk around vascular bundles kita sini, in stem and leaf stalk. The function is to store food. Because it is still active or undergoing metabolism, so they undergo the parenchyma, for example, at the mesophyll cell, they are involved in photosynthesis because they are living cells. They have the organelles, and then the product of the photosynthesis can be stored directly in the parenchyma. Then photosynthesis occur, contain chloroplast, The extra intercellular space allows gases exchange, differentiated into another specialized tissues such as mesophyll, epidermis, and pericycle. Okay, nampak ni dia sebab dia padat, bila dia padat dia akan ada bentuk yang nak memenuhi dia punya ruang. Satu lagi sebab dinding sel dia tak rigid lagi. So bila tak rigid, jadi dia akan pack together, bentuk dia akan jadi polygonal. Polygonal akan ikut bentuk ruang tu. Kalau dia tak padat dia akan isodiametri macam ni, dia akan macam bulat-bulat. Tapi bila dia dah padat dia dah mula jadi macam-macam sisi, banyak sisi sebab dia padat rapat. Next is collenchyma. Collenchyma has an elongated shape. Elongated not in the sense of cross section ni Elongated ni maksudnya ni cross section kita tengok ke bawah. Okay, dia memanjang ke bawah. Ini maksud collenchyma. Jadi kalau kita potong kat tengah, cross section kat sini, kita akan nampak bentuk yang sama macam di atas. Collenchyma, the difference between collenchyma and parenchyma, they have a thickened primary cell wall. Masih lagi primary cell wall tetapi dah ada thickening, dah ada penebalan, lebih tebal. But the thickening is uneven, maksudnya tidak sama. The thickening usually occurs at the corner of the cell. Kan ni polygonal, jadi dia akan kat sini deposition menyebabkan sudut-sudut itu lebih tebal berbanding sisi yang lain. Made up of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. The same composition with the cell wall of parenchyma. Cuma dia lebih tebal, sebab dia dah lama. Dia lebih tua sikit mungkin dia makna older cells of the parenchyma. Because of the thicker cell walls, they are more closely packed compared to the parenchyma. So they have either little space or no intercellular space at all. And then they are still considered as living cells because they have the nucleus. We can find collenchyma under the epidermis of stems. Alright. Under leaf venation, dekat dengan urat-urat ni bawah ni kat sini, bawah pokok, bawah daun. Leaf petioles. Leaf petioles ni. Stalk dia. Midrib of leaf. Midrib dekat sini. Jadi kat sini dia dah tempat yang bahagian tebal sikit. Kalau parenchyma dekat tempat yang masih nipis lagi. Spongy, tu kalau parenchyma. Ada soalan nak tanya? Do you have any question regarding parenchyma and collenchyma?
No, madam.
Okay, thank you for responding. Collenchyma, because it has more flexible, because it is still not rigid, but it has a thicker cell wall. So it provide a more flexible support. Jadi dia dah ada perlindungan, dia dah lebih kuat tetapi masih fleksibel. So it provides flexible support. Jadi pokok jenis macam mana yang flexible support ni, yang banyak collenchyma ni, includes herbaceous plant. Bukannya pokok-pokok yang berkayu macam pokok tu dah tua lah kan. Bila dah berkayu maksudnya dia dah tua. Jadi ni young parts of plants macam dekat dengan pucuk, yang hijau masih hijau lagi, dan bila kita cuba bengkokkan dia fleksibel Kalau kita cuba bengkok dia fleksibel, tapi dia tetap akan boleh patah atau putus. Boleh faham kat mana kita boleh cari? Kalau the parenchyma nak cari kat bahagian-bahagian daun yang memang muda, daun yang bersponge ataupun tu pokok yang floating, itu kalau kita secara logik kita nak fikirkan sebab dia ada intercellular space. Kalau kita lukis ni, nampak ni, ini adalah selnya. So yang hijau muda ni semua adalah dinding selnya Nampak ni dia punya, bila saya lukis tu penebalan tu berlaku tak sekata tapi dah ada penebalan. Sclerenchyma is a rigid cells, rigid. Why they are rigid? Because it has secondary cell wall. I'm sorry. Sclerenchyma, the composition of the cell walls is considered as secondary cell walls because it contains lignin, a hardening factor. Lignin. Tulis je lignin. Jadi tak payah awak tambah dengan hardening factor tu, saya nak explain. And the cell walls are thickened evenly. Maknanya rata. Memang semua tempat adalah tebal. So, sclerenchyma are very hard and impermeable. The presence of the lignin cause the cell wall to be impermeable, terlap air. Tidak boleh air tak boleh lalu, tak boleh meresap melalui dinding sel ni. The cells are very closely packed without no intercellular space. Without intercellular space. It has small and empty lumen. Bila empty lumen, maksudnya ni liang, dia macam liang lah. Dia liang sebab dia dah tak ada nucleus and protoplasm. So, when it has no nucleus, it is considered as non-living cells at maturity. Boleh faham? Lacks protoplast. Protoplast means nucleus plus cytoplasm. Jelas tak penerangan saya?
Jelas.
Okay, thank you. The sclerenchyma are considered as dead at maturity. Mati bila dah, maknanya dia dah matang, sebenarnya dia adalah sel yang mati. So the cell do not elongate anymore. No protoplasm. We can find sclerenchyma at the regions of plants that have stopped growing. Usually at the outer region of cortex. Ni kat sinilah kalau nak cari. So kalau awak buat nanti, if you katalah, if you further your study in maybe biology, biotechnology, in botany ataupun in cells, awak akan terlibat dengan observation of plant tissues, and then you were asked to find parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. So this is where the logic you have to apply during your work. Jadi sclerenchyma tak sepatutnya ada kat tempat yang muda-muda. So dia cari tempat yang mana yang dah tahu, yang dah keras dan juga dah tua. Okay. Jangan carilah dekat tengah-tengah, dekat dalam cortex ni. Di paling-paling dekat dengan vascular tissue akan jumpa sclerid. Ataupun dekat epidermis. Dekat dengan epidermis. The function of sclerenchyma to give support and strengthen the plant tissues. Okay, so dia punya fungsi adalah for strength and flexibility. Mechanical, dia mechanical strength. Flexibility masih lagi contoh macam pokok buluh tu lah, sebab dia ada lagi cellulose, hemicellulose, pectin. Jadi dia masih flexible, cuma lebih kuat. There are two types of sclerenchyma, the fibers and the stone cell. Okay. The fibers and the stone cell, or also known as sclerid. Kat mana nak jumpa sclerenchyma secara umumnya? Ni kat mana-mana bahagian parts yang keras, termasuk buah lah, termasuk dalam buah. Buah ada buah yang lembut, ada buah yang keras. Contoh buah pear dia keras. So yang kita makan buah pear tu, those are the sclerid also. Sclerenchyma. For fibers, sclerenchyma fibers, it is a long, slender and tapered. Tapered mana hujung runcing, runcing, tapered end. Arranged in bundles ataupun dalam layer. Contoh sabut kelapa. Okay, sabut kelapa. Ataupun pokok yang kita buat tali, jute tu semua. Those are fibers. Example of sclerenchyma. So we can find fibers beneath the epidermis and in the bundle sheath of monocot stem or leaves. In hemp flax. Ni ini contoh-contoh dia. The stone cells, the sclerids, are shorter than fibers and has irregular shape, exists in layers ataupun bersepah-sepah. Bersepah ni contoh macam dalam warfare ni. Dia macam crystal structure, gritty structure Bila kita gigit tu dia ada macam serbuk-serbuk dalam tu. Those are the sclerae. Seed coat, kalau layer dia coating the seed as protective layer of seed. Function to protect lah, protect seed. Secara umumnya macam tempurung kelapa tu, tu boleh dikatakan sebagai sclerid juga. Dan juga layer yang kelapa bila kita belah kelapa tu, yang bahagian putih yang kita nak parut jadi santan, nak perah santan tu, kan ada layer yang warna coklat. Yang layer tu itu adalah sclerid juga dalam bentuk layer. Okay, boleh imagine? Siapa tak pernah tengok kelapa boleh tengok gambar, cari gambar. Siapa tak pernah kupas kelapa, jadi bila kupas kelapa tu kita jumpa semua tu sklerenchyma. Dekat sabut dia tu adalah fiber, lepas tu tempurungnya tu adalah sclerid. Okay, tapi tebal lah kan. Okay, now vascular tissues, the xylem. Xylem consists of ada 4 jenis. Ada 4 tisu yang membentuk xylem ni. Sebab dia tak boleh satu saja, tak boleh trachea saja, tak boleh vessel element saja, dan tak ada parenchyma dengan sclerenchyma. Jadi xylem ni mesti ada trachea, vessel element, xylem parenchyma dengan sclerenchyma. Nanti awak akan belajar jugalah, ada juga jenis pokok yang tak ada salah satu. Dia tak ada salah satu. Satu je tak ada. Tapi dia masih lagi boleh jadi pokok. Cuma sekarang ni you kena ingat xylem ada 4. Ada 4 includes ada 4 ahli kata. Bawah xylem ada trachea, vessel element, parenchyma dan juga sclerenchyma. The trachea and vessel element. Trachea and vessel element ni lah yang akan terlibat dalam pengangkutan air dan bahan terlarut, dissolved materials. But there are difference. The structure of the characteristics of trachea and vessel element, even though they share the same function, but they have slight different characteristics. While tracheates are has a tapered end, the vessel element has a open end. Open. Maknanya dia cylindrical untuk vessel element. Jadi dia terbuka. Tapi bagi trachea dia close end. Jadi kita panggil dia tapered end. But both are elongated and a long tube. Okay, long tube shape. And they has thick lignified secondary cell wall. Jadi sebab dia dah specialized tissue, jadi dia dah lignified secondary cell wall. So they are dead cell and the walls are perforated by pits. Ada liang-liang yang dipanggil pits. So these pits are very important in allowing movement of water and dissolved materials. Tracheates are long, thin cell and has tapered end. While vessel element shorter, wider and has thinner cell wall. So less tapered. Jadi dia lebih open, dia lebih lebar sebab dia lebar kan, sebab tu dia tak nampak tapered sangat dia lebih open wall, open end. Have perforated plate. Jadi bila dia lebar dan open end, jadi liang-liang dia ada open end ni dia ada perforated plate. Enable water to flow freely through the vessel. Okay, this is the plate. Ni plate. Ni sengit, plate sengit. Ni contoh. Bukan bermakna ni tapered end. Tapered end ni dia terus close, tutup kat sini. The secondary vessel element, the secondary walls are thickened in various way. Okay, yang ni tak payah hafal, tak apa. Ni just nak tunjuk, kalau kita observe bawah mikroskop, kita boleh nampak pattern yang berbeza-beza. Ada yang ring form, ada yang scalariform macam ni. Ada yang spiral. Ni sama lebih kurang. Ni sorry. Yang ni ring form je satu-satu. Tak apa, yang ni tak apa. Saya awak boleh tengok sendiri macam tu. Trachea can be found in gymnosperm and angiosperm, while vessel element only available in angiosperm. Maknanya gymnosperm dia punya xylem hanya ada 3 komponen saja. The functions of trachea and vessel element to transport water and mineral ions throughout the plant, and also together they also provide structural support with the secondary cell wall thickening. So which type is more efficient, trachea or vessel element? Next, phloem. Phloem, the component of phloems are sieve tube element, companion cell, parenchyma, and also fiber. Also phloem fiber. Phloem, the sieve tube element of phloem are elongated tubes, panjang lah, memanjang, almost similar dengan sieve tube element, vessel element tadi. Cuma vessel element shorter, and sieve tube element is a living cell. Living cell, dia hidup. Has protoplasm but no nucleus. Maknanya dia ada cytoplasm tetapi tidak ada nucleus. Jadi macam mana dia control dia punya metabolism kan? Because it has the companion cell. Sieve tube element depend on companion cell to function for its functions. And it has a perforated end wall. Dia punya pore dia, liang-liang dia hanya pada hujung dia saja. Dekat dinding tak ada. Jadi the perforated end is called sieve plate. We can find sieve tube element in both angiosperms and gymnosperm. Jadi dua-dua ada sieve tube element. So the function of sieve tube element is to transport sugar and other organic nutrients to other parts of plant. Nanti awak akan belajar second semester. Awak akan belajar nanti pengangkutan tumbuhan daripada sink daripada source ke sel tu ke sink tu kemudian. Tapi sekarang kena ingat sieve tube element transport sugar and other organic nutrients. The companion cells of the phloem is a living cell that has nucleus, ribosome and mitochondria. We are connected to sieve tubes by plasmodesmata. Kita tengok kat mana plasmodesmata. Alright. Plasmodesmata ni is another types of pores lah. Liang ataupun connector between one type of plant cell to another plant cell. Dia boleh dekat cell wall tu lah. Dia macam pores juga. Can be found in angiosperm only. Angiosperm sahaja. The function is to help load sugar, sebab dia provide ATP. So provide energy for active transport of sugar. Okay, this is the summary. Summary of parenchyma and sclerenchyma. Structure ni tengok companion cells and then the sieve plate. Ada soalan nak tanya sebelum saya sambung? Yang ni nampak ni adalah arrangement of the vascular tissue. Phloem is always facing or closer to the epidermis, and xylem is at the inner part. Inner part. Jadi kat mana nak cari? Kalau nak cari fiber, phloem fiber, ni phloem fiber. Okay, yang tebal-tebal tu flat fiber. Lepas tu sclerenchyma fiber. Ni ada dalam xylem, kat xylem kemudian nanti ada kat sini ada parenchyma. Okay. Kemudian ada vessel element, sieve tube element, semua ada kat situ. Boleh tengok comparison, both are vascular tissues or both are complex tissues, provide structural support. Dia punya perbezaan awak boleh tengok. Saya tak nak elaborate yang